Have you ever seen a uranium fuel rod get produced inside a giant uranium fuel rod? No? Well, today is your lucky day, as in today's episode, we finally produced the first ever uranium fuel rod of this playthrough and our gigantic uranium fuel rod build. What's up everyone? My name's Ollie and welcome to Barely Building. Last time we processed a bunch of raw materials and today we're putting in the final machines to finally get this fuel rod up and running. The community war continues to grow. We have some new names up here, so thank you all again for the ongoing and new support. Drop a sub here or follow on Twitch and just comment to let me know that you have with I subbed or something, as I don't always get notified, and I'll get you up on the wall. So today's plan is in a few steps. First, we need to figure out how we get 14 belts of Caterium from our encased cell across into our giant uranium fuel rod. Then we need to figure out the design to bring our last few raw materials from inside our train station across into the uranium fuel rod. And finally, work our way up, placing manufacturers to finally answer the question, will all the machines we need fit inside this build? Right, our quick wire is prepped underneath the giant encased uranium cell in these 14 elevators. And we need to figure out how we take all of those outputs and transfer them from here to here. And the key is we need to do it as neat as possible. So if we just fill this wall in, which is what's going to be the final plan anyway, get it painted and then we're ready. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to place a wall hole on each individual pillar. And because we want them uniform in height, the best way I can think to do this is to just take a half foundation, nudge that into place on each one. And then when we've got a foundation on, we can take a wall. We can nudge that backwards. And then place a wall hole. And we end up with these wall holes all the way along. And then from there, we can try and get a wall hole same height on the other side. We'll use curve belt mode and we should get these nice sweeping curves from one building to the other. And I kind of like this. This looks really good. And from above, you kind of get this effect that the two buildings are connected together with these belts. I mean, it looks really aesthetically pleasing for sure. As much as nobody's ever going to see under here, I'm trying to keep it relatively neat with belts. So we're going to have to be really careful when we send the elevators up through the walls to feed the rest of the build from these belts. On the train station side, we have plastic and rubber, as well as sulfur and uranium that we still need to move into the base. So move these across the ceiling here at the train station, just to try and keep things nice and neat, into some elevators, and then across into the base here. And the plastic and rubber was fairly straightforward. We've just come through the wall into these elevators, which we can run in on the floor for the AI limiters, mixing in with our first belt of quick wire. That will tick AI limiters off the list. And a couple of floors up, the rest of the plastic feeds into the circuit boards with another belt of quick wire, which ticks circuit boards off the list. Which brings us on to the challenging part of the build now. And over on our diagram, we need to work on high-speed connectors and we need to work on crystal oscillators, both of which have 3 inputs. Put this blueprint together, which takes 3 inputs, and we're going to run it along the side here to hopefully save us some space because it's going to be extremely tight. And placing those in the build, we can pretty comfortably fit 12 manufacturers per floor. We'll start with high-speed connectors. We're using the silicon high-speed connector alternative recipe. We have 14 of these to place, so let's get those in and we can see how we're looking with room. And we have 110 manufacturers to place in total, so you can kind of see why I'm getting a little bit nervous about space. But we fed in about half of our silica and another couple of belts of quick wire, and then upper floor, this just finishes off our high-speed connectors. And one thing I highly recommend doing when you're doing builds like this is to do a throughput test to make sure you're making the right amount of items that you've planned. It's much easier to troubleshoot now than it would be to get to uranium fuel rods and try and work backwards. Here's a good example of why. We should be making 84. we're only making 82. And if we have a look around for some yellow lights, this one is not getting anywhere near enough quick wire. And if we take a little look, this smart splitter should be overflow out of the center. We've got it set to any. So if we just change that to overflow, this should now start filling up a little bit faster, exactly as we planned. And with that fix done, these numbers now match. We're up to 84 a minute, which is exactly what we need. And we have a little bit of free space here, so we might as well place the last assemblers that we need for the build. So with a quick cut, we can get those in place. We're using the electromagnetic connection rod recipe, which takes stators and high-speed connectors to make our electromagnetic control rods. We did a quick throughput test on these. I'm not too worried, as we know that high-speed connectors are okay, and stators I've already done a throughput test on in the last episode. So we're quite happy that these are at a steady 168 per minute that we need. So with this floor, after a little bit of creative editing with the original math that I did, we need 12 manufacturers to make crystal oscillators. And for that recipe, we're using the alternate insulated crystal oscillator, which is going to take the quartz crystal we made in the last episode, our rubber, and the AI limiters to make 4.25 crystal oscillators per minute. We went with 12 as it's exactly one floor. So let's get all that belted in. And the throughput test here is particularly important. We're only making 50-ish of these a minute, and they're going to feed 42 manufacturers. So the manifold is going to take forever to fill up. So I wanted to make sure that this number is exactly right before we move on to the next stage and start dealing with the uranium. And it is 51. This is calculating still, but it's averaging out at 51, which is exactly what we need. And with that done, high-speed connectors are ticked off. Crystal oscillators are ticked off. Electromagnetic control rods are ticked off. Now we get to deal with the fun bit. Processing the uranium and then processing it into uranium fuel rods. And if we look at how much space we have left, the big reveal now is, will 84 manufacturers fit from here to here? And the answer is yes. Just. And I'm putting that down to some careful and meticulous, barely building style planning. We literally have about 12 meters left at the top here to spare. So this was extremely tight. Not luck, all planning. I don't care what you say. We did it. And with that glaring question answered, we can make a start on encased uranium cells. And doing this was much of the same. These are the last of the Caterium belts that we're going to need. So this is using 6,300 Caterium. And again, through some nice barely building, meticulous planning, and not luck, each floor takes 600 uranium and 600 sulfur. And each belt that we have coming in has 600 uranium and 600 sulfur on it, with the exception of one 300 belt, whereas we have 12 on each floor. The fourth floor will hold 6 machines, which will nicely take up the last bit of our uranium. So let's keep working on that, and then we can do a throughput test and see if all this is working as it should be. And this went a little bit too smoothly, so now I'm worried. We need 2 760 belts, which these do stabilize out to 760 once they're emptied down, and one 160 belt, and it's all running absolutely flawlessly. I've not had to correct anything, so I'm hoping it stays that way. But for now, we can tear this bit down and we can place the first uranium fuel cell machines of the entire playthrough. And it's all in. We are making uranium fuel rods. We're using the uranium fuel unit alternative recipe, using rotors, oscillators, control rods, and encased uranium cells. This way, we can turn the 2100 uranium into 50.4 fuel rods per minute. So all that's left to do now is grab all the outputs, move those to the roof, and see how many per minute we get coming through. And with that, we grab ourselves a belt. All we've got to do is connect. And here come the first uranium fuel rods of this save, gracefully making their way into this awesome sink, where unfortunately they're not going to get used for a little while. We'll chuck a throughput monitor on. We need to leave this to run for a long time while all those manifolds build up. And while we do that, we can go back through the base, and where we've opened up walls for throughput, we can fill those back in. And where we have belts entering the walls, we can just make sure we grab a wall and a wall hole just to make sure everything all around the base looks nice and tidy. We made ourselves a little entrance so we can get in here. We also went through and named all the floors on our lift. So when I inevitably have to come back and troubleshoot this, we can go to whatever floor we need to just to see what's going on. By the time we've done all that, this belt is looking nice and full, which is exactly what we want. Everything seems to be running flawlessly. But that is all we have time for today. Next time, I think we'll build the drone port, followed by starting the waste processing site. And you do not want to miss the waste processing site. It's going to look incredible. So drop a sub on the channel, comment to let me know, and I will get you up on the community wall. For now, take it easy, and I will see you in the next one.